Unit standby for residential structure fire.
Engine 1, Engine 2, Medic 2, Medic 3, unreported residential structure fire.
What is a tailboarder? A tailboarder is a term that we use to define the firefighter that sits in the back of the engine. The tailboarder is really the workhorse of the apparatus. When we arrive on scene, it's the tailboarder or the firefighter that's going to be the one stretching the hose off the truck, throwing the ladder, doing the searches. Now all of that's done in conjunction with the officer and the engineer, but it's the tailboarder that is primarily doing the majority of the work on a scene. So the fire service is steeped in tradition. Where we really see that tradition come through is in some of the terminology we use to define parts of our apparatus or tools that we use, and nowhere do we see that more than in the terms we use for some of our people. Tailboarder refers to the firefighter. It actually dates back to when we first started having apparatus in the fire service, when we moved from the horse-drawn apparatus to a motor-driven apparatus. The tailboarders got their name because their role was to ride on the back of the fire truck. There were no seats for them. There was a seat for an engineer, there was a seat for the officer, and that was it. So the tailboarders rode on the back of the apparatus, which is what we call the tailboard, hence the term tailboarder. It was expected that you were going to hang on, and in fact they would actually get dressed en route to the call. So about 3 decades ago, the fire service together decided that there were a lot of things that we were doing that were just too unsafe and that there were better ways to do things. So back in the 80s, it was determined that we would no longer allow firefighters to ride on the tailboard or on the sideboard of the apparatus. So we started building fire trucks that had additional seats for that tailboarder, and that's why we've seen that sort of change, but the terminology used to describe the firefighter who sits in the back stayed the same. You know, nowadays, what's fascinating to me and what I love about the tradition in the fire service is that those traditions live on, and we get to hear them every day, whether we're referring to the couplings on our hose as brass, even though they're not made out of brass anymore, or whether we're referring to our firefighter as a tailboarder, even though they don't ride tailboard. It's just kind of a nice connection with the past, even though we do things in a much safer way now.